Coronation Street fans are bracing for a storyline that strips away every ounce of composure Sarah Platt has left, and it starts with a request so desperate, so dangerous, that it leaves Kit Green frozen in place. This isn't a plea for a favor or a quiet word of advice. This is Sarah asking a serving police officer to cross a line he has spent his entire career refusing to go near, and the fallout threatens to reach far beyond the two of them. For weeks now, viewers have watched Sarah unravel under the weight of protecting her family, caught between her marriage to Damon Hay and the mounting fear that her choices are putting her children in harm's way. She has lied to people she loves, covered for a man she knows is capable of violence, and told herself every single time that it was worth it because it kept Harry safe. But safety has started to feel like an illusion, and desperation has a way of pushing even the most careful people into corners they never thought they would occupy. That is exactly where Sarah finds herself when she turns to Kit. The request itself is the kind that changes a relationship permanently. Sarah doesn't ask Kit for comfort or a listening ear. She asks him to use his access, his position, the trust the uniform gives him, to get information or protection that no ordinary citizen could obtain through legitimate means. It's a request built on love and terror in equal measure, but it's also a request that could end Kit's career the moment anyone traces it back to him. And Kit knows that immediately. There's no confusion on his face when Sarah lays it out, only the dawning realization that the woman in front of him is asking him to gamble everything he has built for a family that isn't his own. His silence in that moment says more than any script line could. It's not the silence of someone considering the request. It's the silence of someone who understands exactly how catastrophic saying yes would be, and who is trying to find a way to say no without destroying what's left of Sarah's fragile hope. Kit has never been a character who plays fast and loose with the rules. He's spent his time on the cobbles trying to do right by the badge, even when doing right meant disappointing people he cared about. That integrity is precisely why Sarah went to him in the first place. She needed someone she could trust not to twist her situation for their own gain, and instead she's discovering that the very quality that made him trustworthy is the quality standing between her and the help she so badly needs. When Kit finally does refuse, it isn't cold. It isn't dismissive. It's the kind of refusal that carries real regret, because he can see what this is costing Sarah to ask. But refusal is refusal, and Sarah walks away from that conversation with nothing solved and one fewer ally in her corner. The isolation creeps in fast. She has spent so long compartmentalizing her fear, keeping her family at arm's length from the truth, that the moment someone she hoped would help her says no, there's nowhere left to turn. Every other option feels compromised, tainted by the same secrets she's been trying to protect. What makes this all the more gutting is the timing. Harry, Sarah's son, is at the center of a custody and stability crisis that has been quietly building for weeks. Questions are swirling around who is truly capable of giving him the secure home life he deserves, and those questions are only getting louder now that Sarah's judgment is being scrutinized from every direction. David Platt, ever protective of his family, has made no secret of his unease about the influence Damon has on the household, and that unease has started shifting from private worry to open confrontation. Every time Sarah defends her husband, she widens the gap between herself and the people who are supposed to be her support system. Harry doesn't need grand gestures. He needs consistency, a home that doesn't feel like it could implode at any moment, and a mother who isn't constantly torn between protecting her marriage and protecting her son. The tragedy of Sarah's situation is that she genuinely believes she's doing both, when in reality her choices are pulling those two goals further apart with every passing week. The families around her can see it even when she can't, and that gap between perception and reality is where the real emotional devastation lives. Kit's refusal doesn't just cut off Sarah's immediate plan. It forces a reckoning she has been avoiding. Without an outside shortcut, she has to face the fact that whatever danger she believes is closing in has to be dealt with honestly, through channels that expose her marriage, her decisions, and quite possibly Damon himself, to exactly the kind of scrutiny she's been desperate to avoid. That is the real weight behind this storyline. It was never just about one favor. It's about whether Sarah can keep pretending that protecting Damon and protecting Harry are the same thing. Meanwhile, the ripple effects on Kit are just as compelling. A character built on quiet decency now has to live with the knowledge that someone came to him in crisis and he turned them away, even though he knows it was the right call professionally. That kind of moral tension doesn't just disappear after one conversation. It's the sort of thing that eats at a person, especially someone as conscientious as Kit, who has to wonder whether Sarah will find another way to get what she needs, and whether that alternative path could be even more dangerous than the one he refused to open. There's also the question of what Sarah does with her wounded pride. Being told no by someone she trusted, someone she believed would understand the stakes, is likely to push her toward more secretive, more reckless behavior rather than less. Characters in her position rarely respond to rejection by suddenly embracing transparency. More often, they double down, seeking out riskier alternatives precisely because the safe route has been closed off. If Sarah starts looking for other ways to get protection or information outside the law, the storyline could spiral into genuinely dangerous territory, the kind that puts not just her marriage but her physical safety at risk. This is where the wider plot family drama becomes impossible to ignore. Gail, ever the family matriarch who has weathered decades of chaos, is unlikely to stay on the sidelines while her daughter unravels. Expect her instincts to kick in hard, pushing her to intervene in ways that could either offer Sarah a genuine lifeline or trigger an explosive confrontation about Damon's role in the family's life. Audrey, too, has never been shy about speaking uncomfortable truths, and if the family gathers to discuss what's best for Harry, there's every chance that conversation turns into one of those searing plot family clashes the show has always excelled at delivering. Then there's Damon himself, lurking at the edges of every decision Sarah makes. His presence is the reason this entire crisis exists in the first place, and the longer he remains unaddressed, the more untenable Sarah's position becomes. If Kit's refusal forces Sarah into a corner, it's not unreasonable to expect that corner eventually leads to a direct confrontation with Damon, one where Sarah finally has to articulate, out loud, whether she believes her husband is a danger to their family or not. That is a conversation she has been avoiding through half-truths and quiet compromises, and every episode that passes without it happening only raises the emotional stakes for when it finally does. Looking at where Corey has taken storylines like this before, there's a strong likelihood that Harry becomes the flashpoint that finally forces everyone's hand. Soap storylines involving vulnerable children in unstable homes rarely resolve quietly. They tend to build toward a single moment of crisis, an accident, a discovery, a confrontation, that makes it impossible for anyone to keep looking the other way. Given how much focus has already been placed on Harry's need for stability, it wouldn't be surprising if an incident involving him becomes the catalyst that exposes exactly how precarious Sarah's home life has become, forcing David, Gail, and even Kit back into the picture, whether they want to be there or not. There's also the very real possibility that Kit's professional conscience puts him on a collision course with his personal sympathy. Officers in his position often find themselves walking an impossible line, technically following the rules while unofficially keeping an eye on a situation they know is dangerous. If Kit continues to worry about Sarah and Harry after refusing her request, he may end up watching the situation from a distance, gathering concerns that could eventually justify official intervention through proper channels, the very outcome Sarah was hoping to avoid by asking for an unofficial shortcut in the first place. For longtime viewers, the emotional core of this story isn't really about whether Kit says yes or no. It's about what Sarah's willingness to ask reveals about how far she believes she has to go to protect the people she loves. That's a devastating character beat, because it shows a woman who has convinced herself that crossing ethical lines is an acceptable price for safety, without fully reckoning with the fact that those same lines exist to protect people like Harry from exactly the kind of chaos she's trying to manage on her own. As this storyline builds, the central tension isn't going to resolve with a single conversation or a single refusal. It's going to keep tightening, pulling in more of the plot family, testing Kit's resolve, and forcing Sarah to eventually choose between the marriage she's fighting to save and the son she claims to be protecting. Whatever happens next, one question is going to hang over every scene that follows. How much longer can Sarah keep telling herself that loving Damon and keeping Harry safe are choices she doesn't have to pick between? Let us know what you think Sarah's next move will be in the comments below.